Part of the problem that results from doing the design in the way that we have by creating constituent parts for it are that some of the things that we're using to block out elements below remain an intrinsic part of the design. This poses a problem when you want to use the design on a background that has a different color. Here, for instance, I have taken this particular design, the one that we ended up with last, and have put a gray background behind it, which mimics the sound of, or mimics the color, rather, of the artboard surround. So I'm going to turn that on really quickly, and here you can see the white rings and the center that are used for blocking out those parts of the element that you don't want to show pose a problem. So what's the solution? How do we work around that? Or how do we create a design that works around that? And that's what I'm going to be showing you here next. So I'm going to pause this and pull up the design which I have created as a basis for this, and hopefully I can lead you through that really quickly. What we will ultimately end up with is a design that looks like this. This is another one on a gray field in which all of these elements are separated and don't require the use of the white inserts in order to eliminate elements like the center ring. So here again, I'm going to pause this, I'll bring it back up, and we will begin working on the design. Here then is our design, or our, if you will, the trace layer set up, and the entire design, everything you're looking at right now, aside from the rectangles that form this inner break with the center disc, are composed of a large circle and a small circle. And I'll show you how that works here in just a minute. I'm going to pause and eliminate some of my layers here so that we can get back to 0. Alright, I think I've got everything locked up here and ready to go. I have an overlay that I've added on here, which is the same as in the example that I was giving you, the canvas example, of dimming the entire thing to 30%. You can see with that off, it is real bright. So I'm going to turn that back on. And as I said, everything in this design is composed of that circle and that circle. So I will show you how to go about laying this out. All right, I'm going to take the large circle first, and we're going to move it up into position. It's going to become the basis for this top crescent. Now you will notice that as I do a lot of this stuff, I am going to save a copy of them rather than allow them to get used up. So once I have that into position, I can then turn that off. I'm going to turn on my small circle, unlock it. Now what I want to do with that is I want to bring it up in size so that it's the same size as the inside crescent here, but I want to keep this because this is an important part of the design that I'm going to need for interrupting the inner ring. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a copy of that small ring and shut off the original and take that small ring, and with it on and selected, I'm going to change the color to white. Okay, and then I'm going to increase the size of it until it fills the space inside that forms the crescent. So I'm going to hold down both my Shift and my Alt key, drag this open until it touches the edge of that, like so. Hopefully it's gone beyond the end of it here, so we're going to end up with a blotting out of that when we turn the large circle back on, and we have. So I'm going to take and I'm going to duplicate again the large circle and shut it off because I don't want to damage it in any way. I'm going to put the large circle underneath the small circle. I'm going to take a copy of the small circle and do edit. And see, I didn't duplicate that small circle. I'm going to duplicate that and save it too. I have found that it's important to save all of these things as you do them because you might need them again. So I'm going to take that small circle. I've shut the copy off. I'm going to go to that area. I'm going to do edit, and I'm going to cut it out of there, and I'm going to throw that layer away that I cut it from, so I don't need that anymore. I still have the copy of it here. I'm going to go to the large circle element that I have on, object that I have on, and I'm going to do edit paste in place. Okay, so now because this circle is on top of that circle, I can use my Pathfinder tool to erase it from the other one. So in order to do that, I think I need to pull up my Pathfinder tool if it's not up already, and it doesn't look like it is. So I want to go down here and find, oh, the Pathfinder is on. There it is right there. And what I want to do is I want to highlight both of those circles, and I want to eliminate the front from the back. So I'm going to be using this right here, minus front. If I do that, as you can see, I now have a crescent with an empty spot. Okay, so now I have this large circle that has now become a crescent. I'm going to name that crescent, and it's going to become the basis for all of the crescents. So I'm going to take that, I'm going to make a copy of this one. I'm going to do edit, copy, edit, paste in place, and then I'm going to drag it down and position it over the crescent on the left hand side. In order to do that, however, I want to make sure that I keep things aligned. So I'm going to drag down another rule line. You'll notice that I had two rule lines on the piece to begin with, and they were kind of like crosshairs in the middle of the design. That way I can keep these at the bottom lined up where they need to be. So I'm going to take this crescent and I'm going to position my bidirectional arrow here and rotate it till I kind of get it to where I want it to be, right here. And I'm using the rule line to make sure that my design stays lined up at the bottom. And I think that's about where I want it to be. Yep, back over a little bit. And I'm going to do now is I'm going to do edit, copy that one, and edit, paste in place. And I'm going to move it directly across. Hopefully it's staying in the same relative spot. Looks like it's right where it needs to be. And I'm going to use my bidirectional arrow to rotate it into position. You'll notice that it rotated kind of off center, so I need to bring it back. That's about where the other one is. Alright, so let me shut this off for a second, see what that looks like. You notice that I've got this little tiny triangle here in the middle. It looks like this one's further to the right than this one is to the left. So I'm going to adjust this back just one more nudge. There we go. This part right here is kind of an imperfection that we will later deal with in not necessarily the most perfect of fashion, but a fashion nevertheless. So now we have the three elements that compose the center portion of our design, composed of those two circles. I'm going to pause this again for a moment and then we will proceed. Okay, now to continue, I have the crescent layer here, which contains all three crescents, and I'm going to shut that off for a minute so that we can work on the next element of the design, which is the center circle. In order to do that, I'm going to need to turn on my large circle again and move it into position where it belongs, which is over the center circle right there. Again, I'm going to make myself a copy of this and shut it off because I don't want to jeopardize it. I am also going to turn back on my small circle, which I think at this point may be the right size for what I need it to do, and position it over where it needs to be. I'm not directly lined up with the center of the circle over the crosshair, which leads me to believe that the bottom circle may not be in the right position either. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shut off the small circle and check the position of the larger circle. Yeah, it's not right where it should be. It should be down just a little bit. There we go. I want to make sure that the center of that circle remains at the center of the crosshairs. And now I'm going to turn on the small circle and move it down. Oop, I'm moving the large one. Gotta watch me all the time. There we go. Alright, so now I'm going to lock up the large circle and then move the small circle down. There we go. I think we got it centered now. Let's turn this off for a second, both of them, and see how that jibes with what we had underneath. Looks pretty close. Alright, so I'm going to make a copy of the small white circle and again shut it off because I may need it again. And I'm going to take the small circle and I'm going to do an edit and cut, and then I'm going to take that small circle layer and get rid of it because there's nothing left in it now. I'm going to go back down onto the large circle, which is now locked. I'm going to unlock it and do an edit and paste in place. Okay, that puts my large circle or small circle directly over my large circle, and now I should be able to, again using my Pathfinder tool, select them both and minus the front, and that gives us the ring. Alright, so now we're ready for the next part. As you can see, we have the crescents and we have the center circle, but we need to do the interrupts where they interrupt each one of the cross positions in the design. You'll notice that I've got a little variation here from my background image to my front image, and I noticed that I had some distortion in the one last night when I did this, and so I'm going to leave this where it is because I know that this center circle is now lined up over the center of the design. Alright, I'm going to pause this again and then we will pick it up on the other side. So then the next part is going to entail making the breaks in this ring for each one of the crescents. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to shut off the crescent design because we don't need to deal with that right now. What we do need to deal with, though, are the large and the small circles again. I'm trying to remember what I think I might have got rid of one here. I need to keep that one and that one. So I'm going to take that large circle and I'm going to make sure that I lock up the center circle, everything that I just worked on, including the crescent itself, because I don't want to get anything confused. I'm going to move the large circle up so that it coincides with the crescent itself. And I think what I have to do with that now is I have to make it smaller. So I'm going to take and make a copy of this layer and shut it off. I'm going to use the copied layer and I'm going to use my Alt and Shift key so that I'm dragging it down from the center till I get it to the point where it is going to work with the crescent itself. Now, the other thing that I noticed in the design that I did last night, I didn't always get the breaks to occur in behind here. There was like a little bit of this sticking out. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that mine purposely is a little bit larger than it needs to be. And I think I can do that. Let me see, I'm going to shut that off real quick. Yeah, it looks like it's going to be a little bit bigger, and that's fine because the design work is going to be in behind. Now what I also need to do is I need to turn on my small white disk. Oop, Wrong one. Where did that go? A small white disk here someplace. Maybe it was there. No, that's the one that's in the center. Let me find it here real quick. That's the big one. It's the one I'm just dealing with. And that's the one that's... I have lost it here for a second. Oh, there it might be at the top. Now that's the same one I was dealing with before. Okay, that being the case, I'm going to duplicate that one and move it up into position and then make it smaller. So I'm going to shut one of them off, turn one of them on, and move it up into position and then make it smaller. Line it up over the top of the other and do a Alt Shift so that I'm making it smaller from the center. Okay, that's about right. Now I'm going to be using this black ring when I'm all done to make the deletions from this center ring. And if that's the case, I may alternate. I may make this white disk black and the black disk white. I'm going to pause this for a minute and go ahead and do that. Alright, I have reduced the coloration of the ring in the center. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to shut off the center ring, the large disk in the middle, and take the two disks that I have currently created, which is this one here and this one here, and I'm going to take and make a copy of that small one, because I don't think I did that yet. If I did, that's too bad. It's always nice to have an extra one nevertheless. And I'm going to take this small ring that I just made the copy of, and I'm going to do Edit and Cut from there. And I'm going to take and throw that one away because it's an empty layer now. And I'm going to go back down to the large disk, which is also on, but you can't see it very well right here. And I'm going to do an Edit, Paste in Place. Alright, so now I've got the black disk on top of the white disk, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract the black disk from the white disk and then use that to make my interrupts in the center ring. So I'm going to quick click here and do minus from front, and now I have a ring. Okay, so let me pause it again. I'm going to get these rings moved into position. There'll be one here, and one here, and then we'll make the reduction from the center ring. Now I've turned on the gray background behind the overlay so that you can see this a little better as I move these rings around. You can see that that one's positioned, and I've got a little bit of space just beyond it there, which will hopefully lead to a better result than I had last time with this. So what I want to do now is I want to move the repositioned ring over to the left, and you'll notice they're moving behind the main design, and that's fine because I want to be able to see where to position it so that I end up with just a little bit beyond the edges of this center design. It's not going to influence the center design at all because I'm not deducting anything from that. I'm reducing or deducting things from this ring. Okay, so I'm going to pause this again. Pausing this helps a little bit to keep this video from getting a little too long as I do intermediate step. Okay, now that I have the three rings positioned and the center ring from which I want to make my reductions from ready, I can take and make sure that I'm on the layer over here that contains these three rings. That's the one. And I'm going to drag open something around them, all three of them. What I want to do is I want to do Edit and Cut from here, throw that layer away, and go down onto the large center ring, which is right there, and then do an edit, paste in place. It says that I want to position something. Oh, I haven't unlocked this layer, so I'm just going to say, go ahead and say yes. It'll unlock the layer. Now, what I want to do, of course, is I want to minus these white rings from the black ring. So with that, I'm going to highlight the black ring and minus from front. There we go. Now we've got the ring with the gaps in it that are necessary. If I turn on my center design again, yes, it looks like it looks pretty good. Now see, when I put this all together on another background, so if I turn off my overlay right now, you'll see it on the gray background there. And so that means that when I marry this all together, it really doesn't matter which background I put it on. This is the way it'll look. I could change this background to red if I wanted to, and the black logo part will stay. Got some little notches cut out of the end down here that I didn't see before. I don't quite understand that. I've got another one here and there and here and here. Funny. That's really strange. Anyway, things being what they are, I may have to back up and see what I did wrong there, but I'm not really sure. Hold on, I'll pause this for just a second. I see now what it was. I was reading the new design, which is in front here, against the old design, which is down on front of that gray background beyond the overlay. So you can see a little bit of it peeking out there. It's not a problem in the artwork that I'm creating now. It's a problem of reading one layer against another. Okay, so I'm going to pause this again and we will go into the last step. The last step, as I said, is not necessarily a perfect solution to this, but it's a solution nevertheless. What I tried to do last night when I did this was I created this shape, and then I tried to reduce or deduct this shape from these combined shapes, and I ended up with something really, really strange. I will do that again to show you what the effect is. I can always back out of it, and then I can show you what my solution was to this. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this shape, which I had created from a composition or compilation of the 3 rectangles and the circle, and I'm going to do a copy first of all. That's right. I want to make sure we got a copy of that because I'm going to have to come back to that. All right, and I'm going to shut it off. I'm going to go to the one that I was using before, which is this one. Grab those 3 together and do edit and cut from this and go to the crescent layer, unlock it, and do edit, paste in place. Alright, now I've got this. This is ostensibly, this is on the top of these 3 crescents. So all things being equal, I should be able to deduct this from that, but watch what happens. This is what I ended up with the problem last night. See, these are all 3 separate shapes, and I don't think even combining them together makes much difference. But then what you end up with when you try to reduce the front from the back is something like that. And we can undo that really quickly. And the thing that I can do is I can very quickly shut off this small I'm going to get rid of that for just a second. I can always bring it back in because I've got a saved copy of it above right here. This one here is the one that I took it from, so I'm going to throw that away because that's an empty layer. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to see if I can't I'm going to shut off my center ring because that's not part of this right now, not part of this operation. So I'm going to take all 3 of these parts and I'm going to go to Object and Group, which will make a grouping out of them, and we'll see if that makes any appreciable difference in my deduction process here. So I've got my shape here again. I'm going to make myself a I don't want that one. This one. Make a copy of that and shut it off so that I can save it. I have a sneaking suspicion this isn't going to work. At least it didn't for me last night. And we will do edit, cut, take it back to the crescent layer, edit, paste in place, select the crescent layer, and use the minus from front. Yep, and it's the same thing. So my suspicion is that it has to do with the fact that the rings were separated, or the crescents were separated and created as layers on another layer, and somehow or another the properties that are involved in them remain with them, and you can only do a minus from front to one of them at a time. You can't do them all at once. Anyway, I'm going to pause this again and I'll come back to my ultimate solution, as I said, which is not a perfect solution, but it is a solution nevertheless. So then my final solution then is, of course, this center design here is made of 4 component parts, the 3 rectangles and the circle. What I can do is simply grab up those 3 elements here, 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 and here, and just simply color them in the same as whatever it is that I have to place them against, which of course completes the design. But as I say, if you did something, for instance, like change the color of your background, in this particular case the background was gray, and I'm going to highlight the background, and I'm going to change it to another color like red. You can see that that no longer works, in which case then I've got to go back and I've got to grab that small circle area in the center, grab the elements that compose it. Yeah, come on. One at a time. There we go. Come on. And change it using my color picker to the color that it's on. As I say, it's not a perfect solution, but at least the majority of the logo will now transfer to whatever color background that you're going to put it on, and you would now have to always change the center to follow suit. But what it does is it gets you away from the original problem, which was the problem that we had with, I believe it's this one, no, sorry, this one, where if you shut off the gray background, you end up with these white rings inside of the design on each one of them. There it is, that one there. This then becomes a problem. The other thing you could do is you could change the color of these as well, but then you've got 3 things that you're going to have to keep track of every time you transfer that logo to a different background, whereas in this particular case here, you only have that one center spoke that you have to deal with. Okay. Anyway, I just thought that I would share this with you. It's a little bit cleaner solution for doing this. As you can see, because of the fact that it was all based off of 2 circles and a couple of rectangles, it went a little bit quicker than the initial design that I was leading you through. All right, all for now. Talk to you again soon.